Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at the configuration of your switches. So one of the things that we're going to start working on is making sure that you understand how to configure your switch. So let's get started. So here's a PowerPoint that I put together that would show you how you go about doing it, and then we're going to take a look at Packet Tracer, and then I'll show you the commands in Packet Tracer. So let's get ahead. So this is the configuration as layer 2 and layer 3 switches. Um, so these are the objectives that we're going to be covering. You're going to configure your layer 2 switch. You're going to assign IP addresses, use DHCP or static. So we're going to have a server set up, and we're going to verify IP connectivity across the switches, PCs, and also the multi-layer switch that you're going to have. So when I talk about switches, I'm talking about layer 2 switches. So this here is your topology. So this is the topology you're basically going to be using. Um, so using this topology would help you understand better what you need to do. Now, I've already put together this topology, but if you want to learn it on a higher level, I would strongly suggest that you design the topology yourself. Learn how to put it together yourself. And I do have a video that shows you how you could add and set up your topology, looking at the different configurations that you'll be working with. So first of all, let's take a look at the IP and port representation table. So you normally want to do a table so that it's easy for folks to or anyone to follow on what you're doing. So these are the devices that you have. And if I switch between the two, you'll see I have switch A, switch B, switch C, and a multi-layer switch with the DHCP server. Now, each one of these switches are connected in a daisy chain format, in a loop format, sorry, where they're all connected together. Now, if you see, there's an amber between switch C and switch B. We'll explain all of that later. Um, each one of these PCs are connected to the switches. As you can see, we have the blue cable going from switch A to PC2, which means that we have a console connection. When we are configuring these switches, we're not going to use our console connection. But for best practices, you could add a console connection if you so choose to. If you see here, we have a hub. A hub is connected to switch B. So there are different ports that are on these switches that they're connected to. So let's go ahead and see what we have here. So this is your topology diagram. So basically switch A has PC0, PC1, and PC2 on it. PC0 is connected to port 1 on switch A. PC1 is connected to port 6 on switch A. And PC2 is connected to port 10 on switch A. So this is just a quick rundown so you could understand what's going on. And from switch A, G01 goes to G01 on multi-layer switch. And G02 goes to switch B, G02. So again, this is just showing you. And the IP address for VLAN 1 on switch A is 172.16.05. So this is just an explanation. So as you read through this, you want to make sure you understand, and you could follow this table and map out your topology based on your table. So I'm going to switch over. So the next thing I'm going to switch over to Packet Tracer in a minute. So if I switch over to Packet Tracer, here you see Packet Tracer. So if I switch over to Packet Tracer, this is your diagram here. If you want to see your port numbers, you click on Option, Preferences, and you do Always Show Port Labels. And the port labels are now going to come up here. Let me pull this across so you could see the port numbers on the switches. So when you map it out, you could actually look at that to make sure that your port numbers align with what we're working with. So I'm going to uncheck this. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to minimize this so we go back to our PowerPoint. So here we are. So this is our configurations that we're working with now. So here you see the configuration for switch A. You could pause the video if you're working with Packet Tracer to see it. This is the configuration of switch A. This is the configuration of switch B. If you go down, this is the configuration of switch C. This is the configuration of multi-layer switch. So you have all the switches and the configurations for the switches that you could actually pause the video, look at the configurations, and type the commands into your switch that you're working with. Now, what I've also done is I've given you the explanation of the command. So when you're going through this, let's say you don't understand why you're putting in enable. Now, if you watch the previous video, it'll tell you. If you don't understand why you're putting enable in, if you go here, it'll tell you switch enable. It enters privilege exec mode. So when you put in enable, it puts you into what? Privilege exec mode. All right, from user exec mode. So now you want to switch. When you type configure terminal, you're actually in privilege exec mode. So when you type config terminal, it enters you into global configuration mode. So if you see, once you're in global configuration mode, that's where you put in the command for the host name. And when you put in the command for the host name, it tells you it changes the device name to switch A. So this now changes the name to switch A. And I just give you an example of one switch. It's the same command, same thing we're doing on all the switches. Then I give you the passwords. You enter the passwords. Now, once you finish understanding these commands, the next thing is these are your verification commands. So you could actually use these commands to verify that the switch has been configured correctly. Okay, and these are your verification commands. Now, for now, all of these commands will not work, will not give you any kind of output on the switch because some of the things have not been configured yet. But when I ask you a question, or when someone asks you a question, hey, how do I view that I have security on the switch? Then you could say, hey, you look at what? Port security, and you type in show port security. Now, most of these commands that I have here, right, would work, or all of them should work in Packet Tracer in privilege exec mode. Again, look at the mode. Now, in another mode, we can use do show. But for now, all should work in privilege exec mode in Packet Tracer. The next thing I've done for you is I've given you all the passwords. Passwords are very important. Now, one of the things we're going to do is get to switch security. I'll show you how we could encrypt all of these passwords. Currently, only one set of password is encrypted. The other passwords are not. And I'll give you the command where you can type. Actually, it's actually on the slide right here. It says service password encryption. So you could actually type that command there to actually use it to secure all the passwords or encrypt all the current and future passwords on the switch. So when we get to securing the switch, we'll look at all of that. When I get to talk about securing the switch, we're going to talk about port security. We're going to talk about disabling certain things. We'll get into that later on. So this is what you're going to start with. This is the basic setup of what we're configuring. Now, let me minimize this. Let's get back to Packet Tracer. So again, on the packet tracer file that I'm going to share with you, it has all of the configurations for all of the different switches. So here you'll see for switch A, that's the configuration for switch A. For switch B, that's the configuration for switch B. So if I click on switch A, just going to show you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to click on switch A. Once I open up switch A, I can now go to the CLI. Once I go to the CLI, I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm in user mode. So when I'm in user mode, I'm going to actually type these commands that I see there. So I'll type enable. Once I type enable, I'll type config. Now I'm going to use the abbreviated command, config T. That's configure terminal. Now I'm in what? Config mode. Now I'm going to type hostname. All right, switch A. And as you can see, I'm following the commands. Okay. If you do not understand the commands, you can go back, look at the first part of the video, and then come back so you could understand the command and make your little notes. You could jot down your notes, put your notes in. All right. And now we're going to move on to putting in the banner, the passwords. So you just follow the commands as you see it here. So you do switch A, you do switch B, you do switch C, and then you do multi-layer switch. In this configuration, I did not add the default gateway. I'm gonna add, I willfully left the default gateway out for when we get to another stage or another lab where we actually are going to be working on VLANs. And when we put in the VLANs, you'll see, because we're going to use the multi-layer switch to do that, and you'll see the whole configuration of the VLANs and how VLANs work. And we'll use the multi-layer switch to route between the VLANs. So that's it, guys. You have the configuration. This packet tracer file is going to be shared with you. Once you watch the video, you can come back. If you have any questions, please let me know. And once you finish, we'll do some testing. So the next video I'll come out with is showing you how a full configuration of this is done, and then we'll test to see what we have on it, make sure everything works. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.